On this episode of Game Shack, I went to go buy a new Arcade1up machine for Father's Day, and what I discovered shocked me. Let's talk all about it. Coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I'm your host, JDV for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thanks for stopping by. If it's your first time here, thanks for stopping by. And if you're a returning regular, hey, thanks for supporting the channel. You can really support the channel by giving me a thumbs up on the way out the door. And please subscribe if you haven't already and hit the notification bell if you have. Okay, so Father's Day is right around the corner here in 2025. And I was thinking about, maybe spoiling myself a little bit with an Arcade1up. It's been a long time since I bought an Arcade1up. That Pac-Mania cab I bought, I think 2 years ago now. Maybe 2.5, and I bought it used. So it's been a long time since I bought anything new retail from Arcade1up. So I thought I would go to the usual suspects and see what was available. And what I found out was actually borderline shocking. And that's because when I went to go look at these websites, they had very few machines available and almost none of the older machines that you might be interested in, things like Tron, Dragon's Lair, Golden Axe, none of those places had those available at all. In fact, the only place that had Street Fighter was Target. They have a few of those machines left, but if you wanted to buy a Street Fighter brand new from Arcade1up, Target is now, at least in terms of me checking around, the only place that had one available. So Best Buy doesn't have it, QVC, HSN, Kohl's, Walmart, none of those places had a new Street Fighter game available to buy from Arcade1up. Also shocking is just how few cabs are available. Target, I think, had 5 or 6. Best Buy led the pack with 7 cabs. Costco had 0 3/4 scale cabs. In fact, the only real cab they had at all was that Pac-Man or Pac-Man Partycade, but no 3/4 scale Arcade1ups at all. QVC had 5 3/4 scales plus a claw machine. Walmart's down to 4, at least as the time I checked, and Kohl's had 6 3/4 scale Arcade1up arcade machines available to buy new. And I think that speaks volumes as to where the future of Arcade1up is going. Clearly these box stores don't have a lot of things to stock on their shelves. If they did, they'd probably stock them. Why not? They did just last year and all the years leading up to this. So to me, it means that there is a simple lack of stock. Now, the big caveat or asterisk in all of this, of course, are the tariffs that are still going on. But those tariffs have been greatly reduced. So I think it's an extra 10% cost now than before the tariffs kicked in. So not enough to really prevent a company from bringing these units in. After all, we've seen massive price increases on Arcade1up products in the last 2 years. So adding another 10% to cover that tariff, that doesn't kind of float the boat for me in terms of why we don't have more of these cabs. James Hates Everything did a really good video predicting that these cabs would start to go up in price. Now they haven't really yet. Now cabs like Tron, Dragon's Lair, some of those boutique, really small number issue type 3/4 scale machines have kept their value and have maybe gone up in price, but you can get a Pac-Man and things like that pretty cheap if you go on Facebook. $300-400 is pretty common. So, not too hard to get that type of cab. But as time goes on, if Arcade1up stops producing the traditional 3/4 scale cab with the 17-inch screen, and there's every likelihood that they do based on what they put out at Walmart this year, then that means that every single cab right now with a 17-inch screen is essentially been made and no more are going to be made. If that is true, then all of these machines eventually will go up in value because there's only so many of them. Obviously, the vast majority of the machines that have been put out by Arcade1up are some variety of Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man, Class 81, something like that. So not counting those, because those are going to be available pretty cheap for years and years to come. But everything else has a real chance of skyrocketing upward in terms of value, as a collector or whatever. But they also are going to become very hard to find new. They already are hard to find new. Again, the fact that you can only buy Street Fighter new from one place, Amazon might still have it. I don't know, but I mean, you'd think that would be a cab that you could buy at Walmart, Target, Kohl's, QVC. No, you can buy it at Target. Maybe you can buy it at Amazon, although I didn't find it there, but you know, it's not a great sign for that company, of course. You know, in previous videos, I essentially predicted that Arcade1up would just become a company that makes Pac-Man, Street Fighter, and Mortal Kombat cabs, and that was about it. Even that fairly moribund prediction now seems to be wildly optimistic. So what does all this mean to anybody who's interested in collecting home arcade machines for their man cave or whatever? And I would say, well, you better buy it now. If you have any interest in that Street Fighter cab, you better snag it now, because they're not going to be making any more of those. From everything I can see, just from all the rumors and everything, I don't think Arcade1up has that license anymore. So they are not going to be making that cab. And even if they are, they're making them in such small numbers that it's going to be very hit or miss to get them, even after the tariffs have sort of sorted themselves out. So if you want any other kind of a cab, if you're looking at that Fast and Furious cab, you can still get into that cab at a few places, not many though, but you can still find it. If you're interested in, say, in having two, side by side so you can race each other, you probably better get into it now, because I think a year from now, it won't be available at all. Now, I could be totally wrong. Maybe Arcade1up is just waiting all this out and they're going to hit us with a whole bunch of re-releases on all these cabs. It wouldn't be shocking to see another re-release of Fast and Furious. It's a big selling cab, and of course the Pac-Man cabs. But if they lost the license to Street Fighter, they're not going to have that. They've obviously lost the license to those Atari cabs, so you're not going to see Tempest. You're not going to see that Atari 50th again. Those are just gone. We know they've lost the Sega license, so you're not going to see something like that Outrun cab again. So to me, if you do have even a middling interest in any one of those cabs, if you see it available new in box, I'd say you probably better snag it. And presuming it's not a Pac-Man or a Miss Pac-Man type of game, I'm guessing that those cabs will actually have some collectible value coming down the line, even if you don't really feel like playing them. I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is just a blip because of the tariffs and some other things, and by the time November rolls around, all of these cabs are going to be in stock for us to buy? Or no, you better buy these cabs now while you can, because the only thing that's going to be available 6 months to a year from now are going to be those 15-inch screen varieties from Walmart, and if that don't float your boat, you might be SOL, and that doesn't stand for Same Old Lions. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you dig this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up. It really does help this channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Love each other, and until next time, I'll see you right here in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.